In a small, bustling market on the planet Epsilon 12, where the scent of alien spices and the sounds of haggling filled the air, a man named Cael stood in front of an old merchant stall. The merchant, a hunched alien with elongated fingers and skin the color of ash, beckoned Cael closer. Fresh today. Unique item. The merchant rasped, his beady eyes glinting with something that Cael could only describe as mischief. Cael had seen countless strange objects in the market. Beings in cages, trinkets from ancient civilizations, relics from battles fought long ago, but nothing like this. The merchant's hands rested over a small, intricately carved box, the wood dark and glimmering with an inner life of its own. A faint pulse of greenish light escaped from a crack in the side of the box. "What's in the box?" Cael asked, intrigued but wary. "The heart of a queen," the merchant replied, voice thick with intrigue. "A heart that holds the essence of life itself." Cael frowned, skepticism tugging at him. "A heart? Of a queen?" The merchant nodded slowly. "Not just any queen. She was powerful, a ruler of a distant world. Her heart, it still beats with her will, her memories. A remarkable thing, truly." Despite the strange feeling creeping up Cael's spine, he found himself drawn to the box. He had heard of such artifacts before, magic or technology, depending on who told the story. People said that hearts like these could bring the dead back to life or bind the living to their power forever. They were always more myth than reality, but something in the merchant's eyes told Cael that this was no mere trinket. "How much?" Cael asked, already knowing the price would be outrageous. "Not much," the merchant replied with a sly grin. "Only what you're willing to trade." Cael hesitated. His family was long gone, and his people were scattered across the galaxy, living in small colonies where there was little wealth to be had. He wasn't rich, but there were still things of value to him. His ship, his weapons, even the last of his savings. Something about the heart, however, stirred a desire within him to possess it, as if fate itself had woven a thread to guide his actions. In the end, he traded a piece of his personal history, an ancient data chip containing his ancestors' records, and walked away with the box cradled in his hands, a sense of unease settling into his bones. That night, in his small quarters aboard a rundown freighter, Cael opened the box. The heart inside was small, its surface smooth and translucent, and it glowed faintly with an eerie light. It was beautiful, impossible even, for how could such an organ exist, let alone survive for so long? Instinctively, Cael reached out and touched the heart. As his fingers brushed against it, a surge of warmth flooded his senses. The world seemed to shift, and in that moment, he felt an overwhelming presence, a consciousness, alive and stirring within the heart. He recoiled, heart racing, but the presence was not one of malice. It was curious, familiar even. Before he could pull away, the room around him faded. He was no longer in his quarters, but in a vast, shadowed hall, bathed in an ethereal light. On a throne at the far end of the room sat a figure, tall, regal, and adorned in intricate armor that shimmered with silver and sapphire. Her eyes, when they met his, were full of ancient wisdom and sorrow. "I have been waiting," the voice said, though her lips did not move. It resonated directly within his mind, clear and commanding. Cael's breath caught in his throat. "Who are you?" "I am Elara, Queen of the Aethar Dominion," she replied, her voice echoing like a distant song. "You have awakened me, traveler." The words were a shock to Cael. The Aethar Dominion had fallen centuries ago, their empire shattered by an uprising that destroyed everything. The queen had been slain in the final battle, her body lost to history. The heart, he realized, was her own, a relic from a time before the galaxy had forgotten her name. I didn't know what I was doing, Cael stammered. I bought it in the market. I thought it was just a myth. Elara smiled, a faint, sad curve of her lips. Most myths are rooted in truth, though they often evolve into something else entirely. I was betrayed by those I trusted, but my essence was preserved, kept hidden in this heart. And now, you have given me a second chance. Cael's mind was reeling. But you're dead. How can this be? Elara's form flickered like a dying star, but her presence remained. Death is a relative term. I am neither fully dead nor fully alive. I exist in this heart, a fragment of what I once was. But I can feel the pulse of life again. Your touch has reignited the flame. But how? Cael asked, shaking his head. What am I supposed to do with you? I didn't mean to. I didn't want to. You have brought me back to life, whether you intended it or not, she interrupted gently. Now we are bound, you and I. The heart, once belonging to me, is now yours. You have the power to help me return to my true form. But first, you must understand my people, my empire, and the price of bringing me back. Cael swallowed hard. He had never imagined this kind of responsibility. He was just a scavenger, a wanderer between the stars. Yet here he was, the reluctant keeper of a queen's heart, and with it, the fate of an entire empire. I can help you, Cael said quietly, more to himself than to Elara. But I don't know how. The queen's presence radiated a calm, as if she had seen the galaxy rise and fall 1,000 times over. You will learn. Together, we will restore what was lost. Days turned into weeks, and Cael's life slowly transformed. The heart's power granted him access to forgotten knowledge, ancient technologies, and the deep, arcane secrets of the Aethar Dominion. He learned of their rise to power, their fall, and the ancient enemies that had torn their civilization apart. Through the heart, Elara spoke to him, her voice both distant and immediate, guiding him through the ruins of her former empire and the shattered remnants of her people's legacy. As time passed, Cael began to realize the immense weight of what he had done. The more he learned, the more he understood how dangerous it would be to restore Elara to her full power. There were forces in the galaxy, other factions, other empires, that would stop at nothing to claim the heart for themselves, and with it, the rebirth of a queen whose very presence could ignite a war across the stars. One night, after a long day of deciphering the ancient texts of the Aethar, Cael sat in his quarters, the heart glowing softly before him. He had come to a crossroads. Elara had made it clear that to truly restore her, they would need to return to her home world, where a ritual could bring her back to her physical form. But Cael knew that this would come at a cost. It would mean war. It would mean the rise of the Aethar Dominion once more, and with it, countless lives lost in the conflicts that would inevitably follow. As Elara's presence filled his mind once more, Cael made his decision. I can't do it, he said, his voice heavy. I can't bring you back. Not like this. There was silence for a long moment. Then, Elara spoke softly, understanding in her voice. You have chosen, Cael. It is a difficult choice, but a wise one. I was a queen once, but I am no longer the ruler of an empire. Perhaps I was meant to fade into the past. Cael closed his eyes, feeling the weight of her words. What will happen now? The heart will remain with you, she said. Guard it well, for others will come seeking it. But you will carry my memory, and perhaps, one day, you will know what to do with it. And with that, her presence faded, leaving Cael alone with the heart, the glowing relic of a forgotten empire. The galaxy was vast, and the echoes of history were impossible to escape. But Cael had learned that sometimes the greatest power was knowing when to let go. And so he placed the heart back into its box, locking it away. For now, it would remain hidden, safe, until the time came when the galaxy would once again need a queen.